Hey, everybody. Welcome to Breakfast All Day. Alonso here with Matt and Christy. We are remotely together again, and we're glad you joined us. Dropping on Netflix today is the new comedy from Will Ferrell, and it's all about a real thing that is huge, I think, everywhere but America, unless you are like a total gay like myself. That would be the Eurovision Song Contest. Christy?
You do watch Eurovision.
Oh, hell yes,
every year, do you not?
I do.
Okay, so before we launch into this, can you explain the allure of Eurovision?
Well, we'll get into it when we talk about this movie.
Right.
Eurovision kind of knows how ridiculous it is. And it is a level of sort of showbiziosity that is like, I think Vegas is about as close as we get to it in America. Like, it is shamelessly like smiles and spangles and sentimentality, and you've got all these people from around the world singing in English, which is at least their second language, if not third or fourth. And so the songs tend to be generally sort of banal and about like, you can do it or whatever. It's a big glossy just craziness.
Yeah, it a little bit. I haven't actually. This movie has inspired me to start checking it out when they start. Like the next time it comes around. But it makes me think like it's somewhere between the way you used to get like the really ridiculous 80s era musical numbers in the Oscars crossed with, do you guys remember Solid Gold?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, out my life with music. Yes. Sad. They had dancers. Danny Terrio and the Solid Gold Dancers.
Yeah. Solid Gold Dancers.
So Will Ferrell, this is very much a Will Ferrell character, in line with, his Blades of Glory character and Ricky Bobby. He is an oafish, overgrown man-child with delusional dreams of grandeur. He is a guy named Lars who lives in a small Icelandic fishing town. He and his longtime childhood friend Sigrid, played by Rachel McAdams, are a singing duo, and they call themselves Fire Saga. The whole title of this film is Eurovision Song Contest, the Story of Fire Saga, and which is redundant because a saga is a story. Anyway, I don't know. So
and he doesn't seem to be a fan of Game of Thrones, as we discover. So
no, he doesn't get it. So he since he was a child, we see a flashback in the beginning to him seeing ABBA on Eurovision, and Eurovision is what launched ABBA and Celine Dion, and he sees them singing Waterloo and he's entranced, and the little girl version of Sigrid is also into it, and they're singing and dancing, and this is the thing that puts him on the trajectory for the rest of his life. And they have these ridiculous costumes and they're not very good. She's good, but he is not. But he's such a narcissist, like all these Will Ferrell characters are, like a benign narcissist, not a malignant narcissist, that he doesn't see that she's really truly the talent here. And he also doesn't see that she's secretly in love with him, which is a whole problematic subplot to this. Through some whole convoluted rigmarole, they get into the big Eurovision contest. They become Iceland's representative. They become Iceland's representative into the Eurovision contest, where they're up against the best of the best from the world, people from Greece and Israel and Moldova and Russia, as played by Dan Stevens. He is the favorite.
Steals the movie.
He is the best part of the whole thing because he gets it. He gets the tone right. Because one of the big problems with this movie is it is 2 hours and 30 minutes long. And David Dobkin, who directed it, never really gets the handle on full-on making fun of Eurovision for how ridiculously over the top it is, which seems redundant because it's already baked in.
Exactly.
With the sentimentality of the love story and the sweetness of the songs and the patriotic fervor that Eurovision instills in the citizens of all these various countries. And it just feels like a funny nugget of an idea dragged out well beyond its feature length. If this had been a tight 85 or 90 minutes, I would have liked it a whole lot more. Well, but they're trying to tool on the costumes and the songs, but then they also have this whole moment where they like stop everything to have a song along. They all the top competitors from all the top nations meet at the mansion
of the movie.
Okay, but hold on. It's the best part of the movie. I want to explain it real fast. And it's sort of like the whole a cappella sing off in Pitch Perfect movies, where all the top competitors like meet and they build on one another's songs, and you have real people from real Eurovision of Europe who are
Dana International.
Right. Conchita Wurst, who is a trans performer from Austria.
I forget, but yes, Conchita.
Anyway, but she's like in a dress with beard and full long hair, and she's one of the more famous ones. And it like grinds to a halt for this really feel good, like upbeat, celebration of music. And then it's back to making fun of stuff. And so that kind of back and forth is the problem throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. First of all, you're making fun of something that already knows it's a joke. So, like, that is, like, the reason that Airplane works is because those disaster movies took themselves so entirely seriously. Mm-hmm. And then the reason that something like, Date movie or whatever, the later shitty version of that kind of thing doesn't work is because you're mocking something that's already mocking itself and doesn't need your help. Thank you. I think this is the kind of thing where if Will Ferrell had approached it the way he and Kristen Wiig approached Lifetime movies when they did A Deadly Adoption, where they just did it. And the joke was like they would just did it super straightforwardly, and they indulged in all the tropes and all the cliches, but they never wink at it and they never goof on it. They just do it. If he had done a thing where this was like a super straight up like Eurovision thing, and then they did the crazy music numbers and the indulged in the excesses of Eurovision, that would have been funnier than this, because it just feels like he's spoofing a thing that's already a spoof in a lot of ways. And then you're right, it does go back and forth, because that number is genuinely joyous and genuinely captures.
It's earnest.
It's the spirit of what Eurovision is ostensibly supposed to be about. This notion that like pop music can bring the world together. And in that one little moment, it does capture that feeling. And then it goes back to shitting on it. It's like, well, pick a lane, David Dobkin,
I felt like this is a movie that I think doing it as a film is the wrong format. Right? Like, I almost wonder, would this be better off? Like, we were talking about Leventoff, the character that Dan Stevens plays.
Lemontoff,
right?
Alexander Lemontoff.
Right. Who's this, he's got this, amazing baritone. And just, like, the song he's doing is, I like the some of the music is just inspired, right? Like, when they first show the tryouts, and it's like, and here's 21st Century Viking. Like, I was laughing out loud, and because of the way
it's dead on,
right? It's hilarious, and it's, I get the sense that they've ratcheted up what actually happens just a little, right? And right, just the tiniest bit, just enough to be like, just over the line. But where I think this movie gets held back is all of the other stuff that Will Ferrell has to put in a movie, like the frustration with his dad, and played by Pierce Brosnan, who's really not given much to do at all. No. Now look, I'll admit that I would watch Rachel McAdams read the phone book. I'm a huge fan of hers. I absolutely love her, and she's fun in this, right? I think she's she's having a good time. She's clearly having a good time in this, even though the role doesn't give her a ton to do. She's not stupid, and this is,
she's naive though.
She's naive, and to a certain extent so is Will Ferrell's character. Lars is pretty naive, and he's, as much as he's focused on getting to where he wants to get to, like, he's relatively harmless, right? It's this movie treats its characters with kid gloves for the most part. And it's not trying to be a biting satire. Like, one of the problems that A Mighty Wind has is that whereas, Spinal Tap is this great biting satire. Mighty Wind is too soft on its, there's too much affection for its characters. And so it doesn't succeed as satire. This one, it's almost like a celebration and it's amping it up. And I wish that it would have kind of done away with a lot of the other things that were going on that just take away from it. Like, and so, you know, when I think about the format, like, do a series of like 10-minute shorts that just show these things over the course of time, right? Or almost make it like Altman-esque, where you're just like, it's all over the place and there's not, like, you just get to touch in on these kind of crazy musicians,
like,
right?
Yeah, this movie's almost as long as Nashville,
right? And
it's not nearly as good.
You know, I mean, look, like, there's a lot of fun stuff. You know, I would be harder on this if we had to go see it in theaters. But, you know, and admittedly, and this is kind of where I'm at lately, like, sit at home and watch this? Sure, why not? Like, there are more tedious things to go through, and the music saves this movie. Absolutely saves it.
Do you know who wrote all these songs?
No.
The songwriter behind...
Yeah, Ding Dong.
No. But the songwriter behind The Weeknd's "Can't Feel My Face" and Ellie Goulding "Love Me Like You Do" and Ariana Grande's "God Is a Woman." Like, he's like this famous pop songwriter. So the songs are good.
Yeah, whoever did them has an ear for it, and these songs are, you could pretty much pass most of them off on an actual Eurovision and it would work. But yeah, no, here's the thing. Even if it's like just as a thing you're going to watch at home, like, you could spend the 2 hours going to YouTube and watching old Eurovision performances and be equally delighted by the bananasness of the whole thing. And not have to slog through, is Pierce Brosnan gonna love me, and a lot of jokes that don't land, and a lot of stuff that just feels like it's punching down. Like, there is this general air of, like, Americans coming in and making this, we're mocking this thing that we think we're better than, and I found that really unappealing for a lot of it. Also, how old is Rachel McAdams' character supposed to be?
Okay, this is a good question.
Because she's almost as old. She's like in the neighborhood of how old Will Ferrell is. And if Will Ferrell's character is old enough to have seen ABBA on Eurovision as a child, then that makes him Will Ferrell's age. And Rachel McAdams is like 11 years younger than him.
She is 13 years younger.
13.
Right. I looked it up. Like, Will Ferrell is our age and she's 12 years, 13
Will
years.
Ferrell is not my age.
No, I meant Alonso and I, not you. You're the Rachel McAdams.
You're ageless, Christy.
Right, Christy, you're the Rachel McAdams of this mismatched.
I do have a cozy sweater on. No, she's 41 and he's like 53, right? So, but in 1974, when ABBA was on Eurovision, I mean, I guess that's part of the joke, right? Is that in reality, they are not the same age and could not have seen that at the same time, right? That's it. But
I don't know that it's part of the joke. I think it's part of how Hollywood always casts younger leading ladies against older leading men. And
the fact that so much of this hinges on her unrequited love for him, and that's why she like schleps to Scotland to be with him to fulfill his dream, even though she is the talent and the brains of the operation. And you know, she's pining for him endlessly, and will he or won't he love her back? Like, as you say, Rachel McAdams as an actress and this character as a character are deserving of so much more than that, and I wish that so much of it weren't hung on the tension, the supposed tension of that dynamic.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
You know, we talk about different formats. I would love to see that world's version of Sigrid being a big star and then tilting into her later Gwyneth Paltrow's type goop business where she's doing like her own little YouTube clips about how to do stuff with the kids.
With yak fat.
Elves.
But no, here's the thing also, though, like, the movie even kind of acknowledges about a third of the way through that there is indeed a romantic tension between them, and they acknowledge that it's there, and then they're like, oh, but we have to get through Eurovision first and I have to focus on this, and then they just kind of pretend like that conversation never happened when Dan Stevens shows up and is like trying to woo her. I'm like, what's even happening here? Did they even know which draft they wound up shooting? Because they act like the her longing for him is this unspoken thing when they've already kind of spoken it. So like, I don't know. It's clumsily put together. And I think it just like, I'm not so enamored of Eurovision that I'm like, oh, you can't make fun of it. And of course you make fun of it. That's why we all watch it. But I don't think this movie does it in a smart way or in a way that is fresh or that's more fun than the real thing.
I feel like they were more interested in the kitsch of the costumes and the setting and the songs.
A lot of the stuff that they do is based on real things, like the hamster wheel and her dress that comes apart. Like that's out of actual numbers.
Right. I think they're more interested in that than they are in like actual character development.
Oh, for sure.
But, I laughed here and there. Volcano Man has been stuck in my head for days. That first big song off the top. I'm driving my family nuts, singing it around the house. And like, that is a moment that I legitimately laughed out loud at, but it's also in the trailer. Also, she's not doing her own singing. It's a Swedish pop singer named Molly Sandin that they have blended her vocals with. But
I thought she was Icelandic. Is she
she's
Swedish,
Iceland. Well, the pop singer who does her actual vocals is Swedish.
Oh, okay.
Sigrid, the character, is Icelandic.
No, I thought the singer was also Icelandic, but
I do not believe so. From what I've read, she is Swedish. But like the song that she sings at the end is like legitimately good and inspiring.
Yeah, and also this movie, like the joke is like that Iceland is this backwater, and like no one acknowledges that like Bjork or Sigur Rós ever happened. Although they do listen to a Sigur Rós song at one point.
And like, Iceland's a massive tourist destination. Do you know how expensive it is to go to Iceland because people really, really want to go there?
Maybe this was an Adam Sandler thing. I want to go to Iceland. Let's make a movie about it.
It's not some hole in the wall.
Better than Greenland.
Anyway, I'm saying 5.
I said 4 or 4.5. I
you
forget.
Said 4.
4. Yeah, I just watched the real thing.
I'd give it a 5.5. I thought it was fun.
4.8 is our
great,
number.
But...
Yeah. Anyway, it's out there on Netflix. Again, if I had to go pay money for this at a theater, I might be pissed, but it's on Netflix. 4.8 is our number.
I saw it at home and I'm still pissed. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Kicking off this week, our recap of the new Hulu series Love Victor. It is the spin-off of Love Simon about a new kid, same high school, different struggles with coming out and being out and all of that stuff. So we'll be launching into that this week. Do check it out, and other fun stuff, of course, exclusively for our subscribers. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.